Let's just do it. See what happens. Have I been live for 2 minutes? Oh. All right, everybody. The live stream. It is Friday night. Time for the weekend. I want you to relax. It is the weekend. It is time to relax. Everyone relax. It is the weekend. Oh, yes. We got a good Friday night stream here. I hope everyone is ready for the weekend. They probably had a busy week. It's time to relax. Let's get another one. Oh, yes. Time to relax. Yes, it is. Ready for the weekend. Time to relax. Let everything just slip away. All the worries from the week, let them slip away. For it is the weekend. What we all wait for. The weekend. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the book Dracula. He's really nothing like that in the book. I got interested in the Dracula novel and story because of how big that new Nosferatu movie is. And if you don't know, Nosferatu is based on Bram Stoker's Dracula. However, it takes its own literary turns and merges some characters and changes names and places. And you can look up all the reasons for that. They didn't want to pay Bram Stoker's widow royalties or anything of that nature, and so they changed Dracula to Count Orlok. They changed, Jonathan Harker to Thomas Hutter and Mina to Ellen, I believe. In the novel, you have a character named Renfield and a character named Mr. Hawkins. Those were combined to make Herr Knock. And so, but I've been really, actually, it's my second reading. I read it through to kind of get an overview, and now I'm reading it in way more detail, and I absolutely love this book. The most interesting part of this book is that it's written, if you don't know, it's written in letters, journal entries, and diary entries. So it's not, and cutouts from newspapers. So it's not just like a story, like a regular novel where we're in Transylvania and Jonathan goes up to the door and did a beat bada boo and Count Dracula did this. It's all told from the characters' perspectives. So it opens with Jonathan Harker's journal. All right, you could see here. See how it says like Harker's journal, letters, Mina's journal, cutting from the Daily Telegraph. Dr. Seward is huge. He makes a lot of diary entries. And all these characters, if you love the Nosferatu story and movie, they have their equivalent in the Nosferatu story. So Jonathan Harker is Thomas Hutter. I think that's his name. Mina is Ellen. Dr. I don't know the Nosferatu names, but there is a doctor in that story who is Dr. Seward. And Arthur Homewood has a character equivalent in the Nosferatu story. So it opens with Jonathan Harker's journey, and basically it is traveling to Transylvania and traveling to where the Count is, whether it's Dracula or Orlok, to go through the real estate transaction of the Count buying property in England in this book. In Nosferatu, it is Germany. So England becomes Germany. Dracula becomes Orlok. However, they're both in Transylvania, so that was not changed as far as I know. Get my caffeine-free Pepsi. Can I even say that? They are not a sponsor. So, Jonathan, can you imagine if you had Coke or Pepsi as a sponsor of your podcast? I don't even think Rogan is at that level. Oh, someone messaged me. Let me see. My sister made lasagna and I'm jealous. Look at this. Look at that. Oh, well, her name is there. It doesn't matter. Well, you've seen my name, so it's all good. But there we go. Looks delicious. I want it right now in my life. I want it right now in my life. Let me text her quick. Okay, so Jonathan is on his way to Castle Dracula in Transylvania. He encounters, a bunch of townspeople that are like, dude, you can't go there. They give him a crucifix, they give him garlic. They're like, it's St. George's Day. When it's like Halloween for us, like when all the spirits come out and all of that. And they're like, you can't go there. But obviously, he is naive. He's from England. He's just trying to get a real estate transaction going. And it's just like a job to him. And he's grown up in England. So for him, what do you mean vampires and werewolves and ghosts and ghouls and all that? Like, to him, none of that even really matters. So, or is even real. It's all superstition to him. So, in the Nosferatu movie, and I don't know if Coppola's Dracula movie from the 90s does this, but it is clear that the person driving the carriage that takes Jonathan from the Borgo Pass to Castle Dracula is Dracula himself. And it becomes clear to Jonathan that there are no other people besides the three vampire wives, the three vampire women in the castle. There's no servants, there's no nothing. So Dracula's the one driving the carriage from the Borgo Pass to Castle Dracula. He's the one making the food. He's the one making Harker's bed and folding his clothes and cleaning up and doing all that. The vampire brides, they just hang out and eat children. Another interesting part of this novel is that vampires, at least these ones, dine on children. It is true later in the book when he creates a vampire in London. In the movie, I think it's 1992, that Coppola made the Dracula movie with Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves and Gary Oldman as Count Dracula. There is a scene where he gives the three vampire women, I call them brides, Dracula's brides, vampire brides, a baby. Now, they don't say a baby, they just say a child. I think Coppola kind of took it to the next level to make it a baby, to make it even more shocking. But they do dine on young children in the book. So he's on his way. It's obvious Dracula is the one in the carriage. Okay, this is I want to describe Dracula because obviously the new Nosferatu movie took a very interesting take for the look of Count Orlok. He looks nothing like the Count Orlok from the 22 movie or any other Orlok that has come and gone in different medium as far as movies and such. And he doesn't look anything like the Bela Lugosi Count Dracula that we're all kind of accustomed to. So here's how he's described. And I think when Christopher Lee did Dracula, they kind of came close. But here we go. This is when Harker is at Castle Dracula, and he's waiting in the courtyard, I believe, not really knowing what to do. The carriage has gone. Obviously, Dracula has to put the carriage away, get off, probably change his clothes so he could open the door for Harker as himself and not the carriage driver. And Harker says in his journal, a key was turned with the loud, grating noise of long disuse, and the great door swung back. Within stood a tall old man, clean-shaven, save for a long white mustache. This is something we rarely see in a classic Dracula, the long white mustache. Now, what they do in the new Nosferatu is they gave him a big, meaty mustache, but not based on this, more based on the fact that the director said if you look up any Hungarian or Romanian or whatever he used, like noblemen from, I guess, like the 1400s, whenever Dracula would have been made into a vampire, they all have mustaches. So that connects to the book and it connects to history. So within stood a tall old man, clean shaven, save for a long white mustache, and clad in black from head to foot, without a single speck of color about him anywhere. He held in his hand an antique silver lamp in which the flame burned without chimney or globe of any kind, throwing long quivering shadows as it flickered in the draught of the open door. The old man motioned me in with his right hand, with a courtly gesture, saying in excellent English, but with a strange intonation, "Welcome to my house. Enter freely and of your own will." All right, so he motions him in, and then he says, and holding out his hand, grasped mine with a strength which made me wince. This is very typical, explained many times by Jonathan, that Dracula exhibits um, unhuman strength. Huge, prodigious is the word he uses. Big strength. He's very strong. An effect which was not lessened by the fact that it seemed, it being his hand, it seemed as cold as ice, more like the hand of a dead man than a living man. Again, Dracula is undead, which Van Helsing says over and over again, talks about the undead a lot. And that's why Dracula is cold as ice, because he is undead. He is not alive. All right, and then um so again, he describes the handshake to the driver again because they're the same person. And in the 1922 version, it's incredibly obvious that Count Orlok is the driver of that carriage. I have not seen the new Nosferatu movie. It looks terrifying. I do want to see it. I don't expect they're going to have that Count Orlok be driving the carriage. Because of how incredibly different that count looks, and very surprised if he was driving the carriage that took Harker or Hutter or whoever it's all the same. Even if you look up Nosferatu, it says Thomas Hutter based on Jonathan Harker. Okay, they're not different. They're all the same. Just Nosferatu, which I'll explain, took just its own ideas. Okay. It merged characters, cut out characters, it actually kind of simplified the story, to be honest. Okay, so he's having supper. The count obviously says, "I do not eat or drink," which we know vampires only um drink blood. And I want to describe him even more. Okay, so we know he's tall, he's thin, he's wearing all black, and he has, my monitor just went out. Did it to me last time. Why don't I understand technology? Thank you. We still going? Yes. Okay. Tall, thin, wearing all black, long white mustache. Now, more description of Count Dracula, according to Bram Stoker. His face was strong, a very strong, aquiline, with high bridge of a thin nose and peculiarly arched nostrils, with lofty domed forehead and hair growing scantily around the temples, but profusely elsewhere. His eyebrows were massive, almost meeting over the nose, and with bushy hair that seemed to curl in its own profusion. The mouth, so far as I could see, under the heavy mustache, was fixed and rather cruel looking, with peculiarly sharp white teeth. These protruded over his lips, whose remarkable ruddedness showed astonishing. What happened here? Am I on? What's going on with this? Do I have internets? Yeah, I have internets. Anyway, so you see it with Nosferatu more, the sharp teeth always being prominent, where in in Dracula stories or vampire stories that have come out, it's like they have normal teeth, and then when they're ready to, attack and drink blood, then their fangs get longer. That's not that's more of something that's been created to, hide who the vampires are. If they always have the big pointy teeth. And also, this implies that all of his teeth are long and pointed, where typically we only see the incisors long and pointed. But this implies that they're all long and pointed. Okay. Uh, Sharp white teeth, though these protruded over his lips, whose remarkable ruddiness showed astonishing vitality in a man of his years. For the rest, his ears were pale, and at the top extremely pointed. The chin was broad and strong, and the cheeks firm, though thin. The general effect was one of extraordinary pallor. Pallor means pale. Bram Stoker uses the word pallor a lot. And in the late 1800s, when this book was written, 1897, that's when it came out. Pallor must have been a popular word. Okay, so here with two, I had noticed the backs of his hands as they lay on his knees in the firelight, and they had seemed rather white and fine. But seeing them now close to me, I could not but notice that they were rather coarse, broad and squat fingers. Strange to say, there were hairs in the center of the palm. The nails were long and fine and cut to a sharp point. As the count leaned over me and his hands touched me, I could not repress a shudder, and it may have been that his breath was rank, but a horrible feeling of nausea came over me, which, do what I would, I could not conceal. The called evidently noticed it, drew back, and with a grim sort of smile, which showed more than he had yet done, his protuberant teeth. What a word! Protuberant teeth. Sat him. That's like a vocal. Protuberant teeth. He had protuberant teeth. Sat himself down again on his own side of the fireplace. All right. Okay, then the howling of many wolves. And the famous line is in the book. The howling of many wolves. The Count's eyes gleamed and he said, "Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make." Oh, what a great line. So that is what Dracula is supposed to look like. And if you go over that, rewind, I'd love to see like a drawing of what this strong, very strong aquiline, high bridge of nose, pointy ears, arched nostrils, domed forehead, these big eyebrows, the white mustache, the hair not at his temples. If you watch the Bram Stoker Dracula, you'll notice that Coppola made sure his hair started behind his temples and it was big and curled. But no mustache, though Oldman has a mustache when he becomes younger, because if you don't know this, Dracula has the ability to de-age himself. So now what's interesting about this book is it's Dracula heavy in the beginning, and then Dracula kind of looms for the middle of the book. He's there, but not typically physically. Okay, kind of like Jaws, but like, he's there, but it's not like Dracula has a lot of dialogue or is present as Dracula. He's there as a bat. He's there as a wolf. He's there as a mist. There's all kind of other things, but, he's in the beginning. He's super heavy in the beginning. You get to hear him talk. You get to hear Jonathan comment on him, all this different stuff. He's a big talkative guy. He asks Harker all kind of questions. They stay up all night in the library chatting. Okay. And then Harker realizes that he is a prisoner and that he isn't going home. He witnesses the three vampire brides try to attack him and bite his neck. But Dracula says, "No, this one's mine. You'll have him later." So in the new Nosferatu movie, it is obvious and very clear that the Harker character, which is Thomas Hutter in that movie, is attacked by Dracula. And what happens is Harker eventually escapes Count Dracula after Dracula makes his way to England. He's on his way to England. He is left at Castle Dracula for the three vampire brides. That's what's implied. Is he's just he Dracula has used Harker to get himself over to England so he can, I don't know, just start over in England and eat people and drink their blood and do his thing in England, where there's a lot more people who don't know him. He says, Dracula says in the book that, here I'm master, here I'm a boyar, here I'm noble. Okay, everyone knows who I am here. No one knows me in London. And I think that's the real purpose here, is he needs to go somewhere where he hasn't been for hundreds of years. For him, as we see with Harker, his existence and the existence of this exotic Eastern Europe. All right, Harker describes the picturesque, that's what he says. The picturesque Slovak. I'm Slovak. I'm part Slovak. My last name is Slovak. And hearing this Englishman, right, from the late 1800s describe these picturesque or exotic Slovaks with their, it's like, they're these alien people to him, but they are. It was a very big world back then, I mean, he's traveling on trains. He's not hopping on, a Delta flight. Okay. So I just love these depictions of these exotic Slovaks, where I'm Slovak. My grandfather was born there, and it's just kind of comical to me. But it's but anyway, the whole point is that Harker does escape the castle. He doesn't become a victim of the vampire brides, and he gets himself to Budapest. And what happens is he's sick there. And then, Mina, his fiance, ends up traveling there to get him better. But I don't know why I lost my train of thought, because I started talking about the exotic Slovaks. And I completely lost my train of thought why I was bringing all this up. But it doesn't matter. All we know is Dracula gets the boxes. Okay, so in the book, you never see or hear about Dracula sleeping in a coffin. All right. And I'm sorry I lost my train of thought. I'm sure I had a point, but I'm scatterbrained because I love this whole story. But you never. So in the new Nosferatu movie, I know they have that coffin, right? Well, in the book, Dracula never sleeps in a coffin. Harker eventually finds his way down to where Dracula sleeps, through Dracula's room, down a spiral staircase, into like an old chapel, and he sees a bunch of coffins. There's these vaults where there's all these coffins that are broken and nasty, but you never actually have Dracula in the book in one of those coffins. What happens is, for his trip to England, he has 50 great boxes, as they're described, filled with earth. Okay, so the thing is that a vampire can only sleep on the earth that he's buried in, because again, he quote unquote died, and then became a vampire. So like he has to sleep on the earth of where he's from and died or became a vampire. So he has the Slovaks and the Gypsies fill 50 boxes with earth, Transylvanian earth. And Harker does not find, in the book, Harker does not find Dracula in one of the coffins, but he finds him in one of these great boxes that will eventually take him to London. So the 50 boxes get put onto trolleys or carriages or whatever you want to call them, with horses, taken to the boat on the Demeter, and they get themselves to London. And like in the new movie, where Thomas Hutter, Nicholas Holt's character, I think that's his name, Nicholas Holt, has the pickaxe or whatever he has and tries to kill Count Orlok. That does happen in the book. However, Dracula, unlike the movie or Orlok, does not wake up. What happens is Harker sees the Count in one of the great boxes. He is now much younger. He is bloated with blood. It's running down his his mouth. His hair is not white anymore. It's brown or just a younger. He has a much younger look. He's very very red lips and white sharp teeth, and his blood coming out of his mouth and running down his chin. And Harker picks up a shovel, and he basically, what happens is, so he sees Dracula twice in this box, and when Dracula's asleep, his eyes are wide open and there's no sign of life. There's no breathing, there's no pulse, there's no nothing. He's just laying there with his eyes open. So basically, as Harker is bringing down the shovel, these eyes are looking at him, and it says Dracula's head turns towards Harker, and he gets freaked out, and he just grazes Dracula's forehead, in which later, when Dracula appears later in person, they see the gash on his forehead. So, but he just freaks out and runs away, and then he can hear all the gypsies and Slovaks nailing the lids on these great boxes, and they get taken away, and Harker is still a prisoner in the castle. Dracula is gone. He's at the mercy of the 3 vampire wives, but he ends up escaping. And like I said, he makes his way to Budapest, where eventually Mina joins him, and they get married there, and they make their way back to England, and then the story continues. So that's basically the gist of the opening. The section 1, to me, the opening, is Harker or Hutter at Castle Dracula and meeting Dracula or Count Orlok or whatever story you like better. Now, here is one of the major issues or questions I have about this entire story. In the Nosferatu movie and in that story, and even in Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 90s, there's this idea that Dracula and Orlok have an obsession with the main character, Thomas Hutter. Thomas Hutter or Jonathan Harker, their fiance, either Mina or Ellen. I think it's Ellen from the Nosferatu. That he has this obsession with that person and that character. In the Nosferatu movie, the new one, that obsession has been going on for a while, that they're connected psychically some way, I believe. What Coppola did in his movie, Bram Stoker's Dracula, is he did this whole cool, scene where he's Vlad the Impaler, and then he becomes Dracula, and his wife, who is Winona Ryder, who looks just like Mina, obviously, because she's Winona Ryder, he sees the locket. Same thing with Count Orlok. He sees a locket and this is not in the book at all. Okay. Dracula is not going to London because of Mina Harker or Ellen or anybody. Okay. He has his own motives for going to England. He clearly states he'd been thinking about it for a long time before Jonathan Harker or Thomas Hutter or any of these people came into his life. Okay. He has no obsession with anyone in England as of yet. He has not bitten anyone. The only thing that to me is unclear is the Renfield character, which in the Nosferatu story is Herr Nock, which is, like I said, a combination of 2 characters. In the book, you have Mr. Peter Hawkins of Exeter. He is Jonathan Harker's boss. Okay. And then you have Renfield, who is a patient in an insane asylum, who eventually it comes out he has this obsession with Dracula, my master, like that kind of thing. Master, I'll do your bidding. He eats flies and spiders and all of that. But Herr Nock is a combination, and Herr Nock, again, has this obsession with Dracula and all of that. The book does not describe in any way that I can find why he has this obsession with Dracula. There's just no explanation for it. And now there's a character called Lucy. Okay. Lucy is Mina's best friend. And Lucy is the first victim of Dracula in England and becomes a vampire and becomes what's called the Bloofer Lady, who is this lady who was kidnapping children to eat. People don't know that, but kids are getting kidnapped with little, teeth pricks on their necks. And they're the victims of Dracula and and Lucy, who is a vampire, who becomes a vampire. And the whole idea is that Dracula uses this bloofer lady, Lucy, as a vampire to lure the children to be their meals, to be their victims. Okay. So Lucy is a sleepwalker. And if you read the story in the book, you have Renfield, who is crazy in an insane asylum, has this weird obsession that's unexplainable by Dr. Seward, who is the doctor at the insane asylum, who I mentioned earlier. And so you think, okay, Dracula is in Transylvania. Is he having a psychic effect like he has with Ellen in this new Nosferatu movie across a continent from Eastern Europe, Transylvania, to Western Europe in England? Is he having some kind of distant influence on Renfield? And Lucy is a sleepwalker, and because of her sleepwalking, becomes his first victim. Is he causing that? Okay. However, Lucy's mother says that Lucy's father was a sleepwalker. So my question is, for all you Dracula scholars out there, is the influence that Dracula has on these two characters based on his psychic ability his control all the way from Transylvania? Or once he gets to England, is he taking advantage of Renfield's psychosis and taking advantage of Lucy's sleepwalking? So his first human victim I'm thinking, as far as I can remember, his first human victim that we hear about is Lucy in England. Well, she's a sleepwalker, and she's out in the graveyard. Her and Mina like to sit on a certain seat in a graveyard, and it's there's a bunch of journal entries about it. And she sleepwalks to the graveyard, sits on the bench. Mina runs to find her. She sees the tall, black, thin character biting Lucy's neck. It's a whole thing. She's the first victim. Now, was the sleepwalking based on Dracula's influence, or did he take advantage of that? Is Renfield's psychosis and mania caused by Dracula, or is Dracula taking advantage of someone in that insane asylum to kind of do his bidding? It's hard to know, because Renfield does have this obsession with consuming life to live longer, like vampires do, by consuming blood that gives them basically immortality, right? And so that to me is a mystery of the book, and maybe I'm just not reading between the lines well enough, or haven't done enough kind of scholarly work. To me, I feel Renfield definitely, has some prior knowledge of or connection to Dracula in some way. The way that Francis Ford Coppola deals with this is Renfield went to meet with Dracula before Harker did, before Keanu Reeves. So he came back nuts from dealing with Dracula. You understand, when Harker escapes the castle in the book and gets to Budapest, he's now at a church. He's being taken care of by nuns with brain fever and great shock. Again, is that because he was bit by Dracula, or just because of what he experienced? The book does not make it clear if Harker is ever actually attacked by Dracula. Well, first off, so in the movies, they take the shaving scene and they turn it into the dinner scene. So what they do with the dinner scene, instead of in the book, Harker cuts himself shaving and Dracula is there. He kind of creeps up on Harker and then lunges at Harker because he sees the blood. But Harker's wearing a crucifix that he got from a lady in town before he went to the Borgo Pass. So by seeing the crucifix and the beads, Dracula backs away because he has an aversion to our religious symbols, right? Because at the end of the day, Bram Stoker over and over again through Van Helsing and other people, relates the vampire and Dracula to the devil and to hell. Okay, that when Lucy becomes a vampire, her soul is now condemned to hell. Okay, and the cool thing about Lucy, and an interesting thing about vampires, according to this book in Van Helsing, is when they do eventually kill Lucy in her coffin, they cut off her head, stuff her mouth full of garlic. They never. I don't think they actually ever get married, but she's supposed to marry Arthur Holmwood in the book. Arthur takes the stake, puts it on Lucy's chest, and hammers it in, killing her as a vampire. But then she is restored to her previous self as Lucy. And then Van Helsing says now her soul can go to heaven. So the story is that really Bram Stoker equates the vampire and all of that to the devil, that these are demons, if you will. These are people who are condemned to hell. They are from hell. They are of the devil. This book is very religious. Okay, God is mentioned a lot. They never say the word Jesus, usually God Almighty and things. But if you want to read a book about spiritual warfare, if you're a real Christian, if you're into spiritual warfare, you believe in God and Jesus and heaven and hell and Lucifer and the devil and Satan, and you think, because in the Bible, if you read it, Lucifer was not cast to hell. He was cast to earth. Okay, and he is the prince of earth. And the devil and his fallen angels, which are now demons, they rule earth. And there is real spiritual warfare going on between good and evil on this planet. And this Dracula book, really, if you want to look at it from that angle, is really a book about spiritual warfare, because you have very, very religious tones in this book of, the crucifix that is given to Harker, who is a man from England. So for him, this crucifix, which is a symbol of Catholicism and the Catholic faith, to him, it's idolatrous, and it's supposed to be scandalous, and something that these English Protestants are not supposed to have any dealings with, because that's of the Catholic faith, which England cast away for their Church of England under King Henry VIII. So to him, the crucifix is nothing to be messed with. That is a superstitious, idolatrous item. But he found comfort in it because it was given to him, and he just felt like, this woman in town before he goes to the castle, the town, closest to the castle before he gets taken there, is just being so kind to him and really worried about him and saying, really, you shouldn't go to Castle Dracula. It's St. George's Day or the Eve, and all these ghouls and ghosts are going to be out. And again, it's like Halloween, as I mentioned, and you really should wait a couple days, but here's a crucifix, here's some garlic, here's mountain ash, here's wild rose, right? All these things that are supposed to, keep vampires away and evil spirits away. And they would cross themselves and do something like point two fingers at him to, help guard against the evil eye. All this, to him, it's all superstitious and hogwash. But he finds comfort in that crucifix when he realizes, the effects it has on Dracula and things of that nature. But again, and then they mention God a lot, and God help me, and I hope Mina, God please help Jonathan, and then you have from Amsterdam, now you have Van Helsing coming, which brings in all kind of religious stuff. Again, heaven and hell. Lucy's body will now go to heaven and won't be condemned to hell because we killed her as a vampire. She now will be revived as her previous self and be able to go to heaven. Now, the interesting thing is, no one has ever done this with Dracula himself. Let's just skip all the way to the end. How does Dracula die? Okay, in the Nosferatu story, Count Orlok is killed by sunlight. In Bram Stoker, that is not true. The only thing that happens during the day to Dracula is he loses his powers. He basically becomes mortal during the day. That's why he sleeps all day, and that's why he's up at night. From sunset to sunrise is when Dracula has all of his powers. He can turn into a bat. He can turn into a wolf. he could disappear. So when he's on the Demeter, which is the ship that takes him to England, one of the shipmates tries to stab him, and then the sailor goes, the shipmate goes, I drove my knife into him, but it was like driving my knife through air. So he has the ability to turn into mist and air. There's a fog and a mist that happens, and that's Dracula. And he's able to, and actually, I think Lucy gets back into her crypt or her mausoleum, wherever she's buried, through the crack in the door, meaning she became a mist and was able to go in. So he can't do any of that during the day. But sunlight does not kill him. It just weakens him. But you can equate that to killing him because he is killable during the day. Sunlight doesn't kill him. But if you should be walking next to Dracula during the day while you're walking down the Piccadilly Circus in the late 1800s in England, you should stab him in the back. He would most likely die because he doesn't have the power of the moon or the night or whatever it is to make him basically super strength, immortal, drinking the blood, the fangs, the turning into a wolf or a bat, and all of that. And so what happens at the end, I just loved it. I mean, I'm skipping all the way to the end because there's so much to tell. It's almost 43 minutes. It's been too long. I've been rambling on for way too long. Anyway, so how do they kill Dracula? Okay. Like in the 1992 Bram Stoker movie, there's this race against the sunset of the main characters. You have the Jonathan Harker, Dr. Seward, Arthur Homewood, Quincy Morris, who's an American character from Texas. They're all racing to Van Helsing, all racing against Dracula's carriage and their horses. And this is in the book, to Castle Dracula. The whole idea is that Dracula needs to get to his castle get to his castle at sunset. So then once it's sunset and nighttime, he can fight them. He has his powers. But while the sun is up, he's too vulnerable. So there's this race to the castle. And what happens is they basically cut off the carriage or whatever it is that is taking his box, right? Again, not a coffin, but one of those boxes of earth to the castle. And they cut off the carriage. They knock the box off of the carriage. It opens. There's Dracula. He has this look of just like not terror, but like fury on his face. They stab him in the chest. They cut off his head, and he becomes dust. And that is, to me, now, before I say this, in the movie, they have a little bit of a battle, like right in front of the castle, I believe, where they kind of have a little fight. It's not as cut and dry as just cutting off his head, stabbing him through the chest, and he turns to dust. Because of the whole thing that they created in the movies between the main female character, either Mina or Ellen, and Count Dracula or Count Orlok. They don't have a connection in the book. That connection only occurs in the book at the end when Mina becomes his victim. Now you might say, yeah, but that was the goal all along. Well, nothing in the book, no one ever says Mina was his victim. Mina was his inspiration and reason to come to England. That's never said. You can imply that, you can make that part of the story, but it was, he makes Lucy his victim. She becomes his companion to get him children to eat. And then the men end up killing her. And so now he needs a new vampire bride. So it is true in this book, the vampires have to be let into a room. You must invite them in. Like if Dracula was right here at this door, I'd have to invite him in. And then forever, he can come into that room. He just needs to be invited in once. And that's what he uses Renfield for. Renfield invites him in because now at that point in the book where Mina becomes his victim, they're all in the insane asylum and they become this little like Knights of the Round Table to make plans to kill Dracula. They need to kill Dracula. So they're all living together in the insane asylum, making up this plan to kill Dracula. And actually, ironically, they were trying to protect Mina by leaving her at the insane asylum You stay here, young fair lady, while the men go and hunt Dracula. Well, that leaves her vulnerable. Then Dracula comes, bites her. She is turning into a vampire, the whole deal. But only then do they have a psychic connection. Now, what's happening is Van Helsing is hypnotizing her to understand where Dracula is, because now they have a connection. And at this point, Dracula is on a ship going back to Transylvania. So during the hypnosis session, she goes, "It's dark. I hear waves. I hear the ocean." Well, okay, he's still on the ship. Okay. I hear men. I hear this. Okay, he's on the ship. Okay. And then I hear horses. Now he's on land, or whatever. Only then, once she becomes his victim, do they have a psychic connection. Okay. Also, there's a great part in the book where Dracula does a typical like villain monologue, and he gives his whole plan that you'll all be my creatures, and Mina shall cross oceans to do my bidding. She shall cross oceans to do my bidding because she is now mine, and you will become my creatures, all of you. You know, he has this grand plan, and then they end up just cutting his head off, and he turns into dust. But that's how he should die. You shouldn't. It'd be cool though to wouldn't it have been cool in the new Nosferatu movie with all of his garb that he had, the mustache and all that, like noble, all the big, I don't know if it was fur or whatever that coat was. Is it like Lucy? Is when he died, he returned back, not alive, but still dead, but his body de-aged and became alive again, as if he had just died in, let's say, the 1400s. No one's ever done that with Dracula. Like Lucy, who turns back into her former self, she can go to heaven. That doesn't happen to Dracula. And maybe it's because Dracula's too far gone. Hundreds of years of being a vampire. Maybe his character can't return to his former self in death and go to heaven and be redeemed. Maybe that's true. I mean, it's not said in the book. It's not even implied in the book. He has turned to dust, and that is it. But anyway, oh my Lord, I'm so sorry. This is a fantastic book. I'm on my second reading. What's happening right now? What's happening right now is Lucy. I'm only on page 96. Lucy has been bitten by Dracula. Her health is going up and down. They don't know what's going on with her. Her soon-to-be husband, Arthur Homewood, is calling on Dr. Seward to come and look at her and observe. He is soon in the next page or two going to be summoning Dr. Van Helsing, because what is happening is every night Dracula is basically coming, drinking her blood, and then leaving. He shows up as a bat, usually. Sometimes they say a great bird. I'm assuming it's still the bat that just looks like a bird, because birds, flap around like this. But because Dracula's a bat, they mention how this big bat just doesn't flitter like a bat. It goes straight as if it has a place to go. Well, that's because it's Dracula. Also, to mention, Dracula buys a house in London, a house in England called Carfax. That estate is right next to the asylum. Again, he buys an estate right next to the asylum where Renfield is, where Mina is going to be. So again, how much pre-planning has Dracula done to? But it's like he doesn't even know these people, Jonathan Harker, and why would he plan? To me, I think Dracula is a character of opportunity. I buy Carfax. It's next to an insane asylum. There's going to be wackos there. I can influence one of them, #Renfield. It'll give me access to, I can be eating crazy people. Blood is blood. But again, in this book, it seems that vampires, at least him and whoever he makes a vampire, they drink children or drink the blood of children, which you don't really see in the movies because I think it's too shocking. And you only see Dracula drink the blood of adults when he kills all the crew of the Demeter, the ship that takes him to London, and then obviously Lucy, and then obviously Mina. And there's a couple others, but it's not clear if he actually drank their blood or if they just died of shock from seeing him. It's not clear. You can take, to me, there's a character, an old man that dies in the graveyard on that bench that I mentioned. He broke his neck. They said, he broke his neck, died of shock, fear on his face. But they never mentioned the bite marks. They always mention Lucy's bite marks. They mention the bite marks on the kids' necks. When the brides are attacking Harker in the beginning and Dracula sends them away, he talks about, feeling the hot breath and the teeth on his neck, so they don't hide the fact that the bite marks are there. But what's happening to Lucy is this bat is showing up at the window. Obviously, Dracula makes his way in, drinks the blood. Again, like Shakespeare, this is happening off screen or off stage. They don't describe, because again, it's a journal entry. So Lucy is waking up feeling weak today, or Mina is saying, Lucy doesn't look good today. She's pale. She's fragile. It's not a straight through book. So you're not getting a narrator or someone describing the attack. You're getting the knowledge from the journals, the characters writing in their journals, writing in their diaries, or whatever, But what is happening is Lucy every morning is weak, and they're doing blood transfusion. Now she's good. In the morning, she's weak. Blood transfusion. Now she's good. And it's because Dracula is draining her blood over and over again. And then she becomes a vampire, and then they kill her, etc., etc. But anyway, if you want to know how Dracula really dies, he doesn't die because he goes out in the sun. They stab him in the chest, in the heart, but I think they just say chest. They cut off his head, and he turns to dust. And that's how you kill a vampire. You stab him in the chest, you cut off their head, you shove the mouth full of garlic. Vampire gone. Dr. Van Helsing is about to come. He is the occult specialist. He is a metaphysician. He's the one who's going to figure out what's happening with Lucy, eventually help hunt down and kill Dracula when they make their way to Transylvania. And I'm reading the book again because I like it so much. And I might see the Nosferatu movie. I don't know. It just looks really scary, and I have trouble with scary movies. I really do. But okay, guys, let's end the night. Let's end the stream with relaxation. I want you to lay back and relax and listen to my voice. It's the weekend. Everything's going to be okay. You might have had a long week, but now it's the weekend. You can relax, watch a movie, maybe even read a book. But it's the weekend. It's actually Super Bowl weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Who's going to win, the Chiefs or the Eagles? I might be a Steelers fan, but this weekend, I'm an Eagles fan because I just don't like the Chiefs for whatever reason. Relax. It's the weekend. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Go to tmpspodcast.com.